This is Brazil, the largest country in South America, with a population of more than 200 million people. This country is known for their rich culture, tropical beaches, exquisite waterfalls, and the Amazon rainforest. Brazil is the 9th biggest economy in the world. And it is gifted with a lot of natural resources. But even after this, the country has never reached its true potential of economic growth. Brazil's economic growth has been very unstable for the past 5 decades. If you want to know why, then stick around and look at the whole picture. So after the end of World War II, Brazil was politically unstable. From 1965 to 85 they were under the military dictatorship. So political movement and free press was banned. However, from the late 60s to 70s under military dictatorship, the country has gone through rapid economic growth. To give you an idea, in 1968 Brazil's GDP was around 9.7%. And by 1973 this growth reached a stunning 13.9%. At the same time, they made large-scale investments in infrastructure and industry. This helped them to establish new industries and diversify the economy. Then the first oil shock in 1973 led to a strong deterioration of the country in terms of trade. Brazil struggled to finance the external debt, and growth came to an halt. Due to economic decline, the military dictatorship lost support, and was forced to step down in 1985. But even after that, the public spending of the government did not come down. Hence this resulted in inflation. Inflation had already been high for some decades. Except now, it totally ran out of control. And Brazil experienced hyperinflation, with inflation rate at 2,950% in 1990. Hyperinflation made all economic activities extremely short-term oriented, and was most detrimental to the poor people. This inflation stopped in 1994, with the launch of the plan called Plano Real, which proved to be the turning point. Under this plan the government introduced a new currency, put constraints on public spending, and ended the indexation of the economy. The Plano Real was very successful in exterminating hyperinflation, with inflation falling from 2,477% in late 1993 to 9.5% in late 1996. From the start of the 21st century, Brazil's economy started to become more stable. And this was probably because of the commodity boom in the 2000s. At the same time, the domestic economy also became more dynamic. Cash transfers, a higher minimum wage, and credit growth resulted in strong growth of consumption. Today the country is the world's largest producer of coffee, sugarcane, soy, and oranges. They have attracted many multinational groups in the food and biofuel industries. Now, even though the agriculture represents 40% of exports, it only contributes 4.4% to the GDP, and employs just 9% of the population. Apart from agriculture, the country has a large industrial sector. And yes, it has benefited greatly from their mineral ore wealth. They are the world's second largest exporter of iron, and one of the main producers of aluminium and coal. As an oil producer, Brazil is aiming to become energy independent in the near future, with reserves that could make them one of the top 5 oil producers in the world. Furthermore, the country is increasingly asserting itself in the textile, aeronautics, pharmacy, automobile, steel, and chemical sectors. Many of the large automobile manufacturers have set up production plants in Brazil. The industrial sector contributes 18% to the GDP, and employs 19.6% of the population. If we talk about the services, then in recent years the country has embarked on the production of high value-added services, especially in the fields of aeronautics and telecommunications. The service sector represents 63% of Brazilian GDP, and employs 71% of the active workforce, which makes it the largest among all sectors. The financial sector is by far the most important of the services industry. The Brazilian banks showed great strength during the 2008 meltdown. The banking sector is the provider of huge funding for mega projects of the industries, especially mining and aerospace industries in the country. Yet tourism has also been on the rise in recent years, making it an important segment of the sector. However, this sector was hit the hardest during the recent pandemic. Especially services such as air transport, tourism, retail, bars and restaurants. Now, even after the growth of different sectors of the economy, Brazil is stuck in the middle income trap. To know more about the term middle income trap, watch our video linked above. Brazil's average per capita income puts them among upper middle income countries. Still, a substantial share of the population has remained in poverty. The country has captured higher positions on some global value chains, such as technology-intensive agriculture, sophisticated deep-sea oil drilling, and the aircraft industry. But inadequate education, poor health conditions, and lack of on-job training is preventing a large proportion of workers from increasing their productivity. Despite low average growth rates, the income of the bottom population grew by more than 6% annually in the 2000s, owing largely to cost-effective social policies. But still, Brazil has one of the highest income inequality rate in the world. Now, if you ask about the foreign direct investment, so yes, it is increasing. But it's not enough to achieve high economic growth. Investors are still hesitating to invest in Brazil due to reasons like volatile economic growth, lacking stability, political issues, and also infrastructure. And talking of infrastructure, well, that is a problem too. According to the World Economic Forum, Brazil ranks 108th among 137 economies in terms of the general quality of infrastructure. These deficiencies are reflected in the country's high logistics costs, which is estimated at approximately 15% of GDP, compared to 8% to 10% in the OECD countries. Brazil is geographically divided in three major parts: the Amazon rainforest, Cerrado the tropical savanna, and Brazilian highlands the coastal area. The Amazon forest is inhospitable for agriculture and for people. To the south lies Cerrado. Here agriculture and commodities extraction are done mostly. But due to distance and geography, the country faces a lot of challenges to export these products. Transportation costs to seaports, and poor infrastructure makes export expensive. In coastal areas, most of the business centers like Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Brasilia are not interconnected. Hence, this creates major infrastructure problems. And on top of that, Brazil invests less than 3% of GDP on infrastructure, which is not enough. Due to this, Brazil loses its competitiveness in the global market. And eventually this hurts their economy. So this was the Brazilian economy. The country has potential, resources, and everything, but still the problems have been holding them back. For now, we might call them the underachieving economy. Yet if they do the right things, then they might reach their true potential of economic growth. If you like this piece of content, then please share it with the world. Also, we would love to hear from you, what kind of videos you would like to see in the future.